What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot here today to share with you all my review of the first two episodes of the brand new Apple TV Plus sci-fi drama by the name of Foundation, which will be premiering its first two episodes this coming Friday. Now, I got the opportunity to check it out early, and I'm really excited to share my thoughts with you all and let you know if it's worth checking out all in this spoiler-free review. Before we break it all down, do me a favor and check me out on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel, well, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That way you can get the alert for when I drop new content. If you enjoyed this spoiler-free review, well, make sure to like and share this review. It helps out the channel a lot, but I also appreciate the support. And for all my Foundation fans out there, let me know if you were excited for this new series. What was your anticipation for it? Have you read the novels that these are based upon? And if you have read the novels, this brings me to my second question. How was the adaptation in these first episodes to the source material? Was it pretty true to the source material? Or if you were like me and haven't read the novels, what did you think of the narrative, the story, the characters, the direction? Are you hooked? Are you fascinated? Or were you bored? Were you disappointed? Let's talk about it in the comments below. So for me personally, I've been saying it for 2 years now. Apple TV Plus to me is one of the best, if not the best, streaming service out there. They don't have the quantity of a Netflix dropping something every week, but they have the quality, and that's more important to me. And I've covered like 95% of their shows, whether it be The Morning Show, Servant, Ted Lasso, For All Mankind, you name it, I've watched it. I'm a big fan of Apple TV Plus, so I'm always excited to see what they have up their sleeve. So going into this show, I remember last year, I want to say it was beginning of last year, Apple dropped like this first look behind the scenes teaser trailer for this show, and it was David S. Goyer, who's the co-creator, co-producer of the show. He was talking about it, and a couple things caught my attention. Number one, he mentioned Star Wars. He mentions Star Trek. He mentions Frank Herbert's Dune, things that I love. If it wasn't for Isaac Asimov, who's the creator of Foundation, we might not ever have seen Star Wars, Dune, or Star Trek, or some of our favorite sci-fis, because, pun intended, Isaac is the foundation of sci-fi. A lot of the stuff that we see in sci-fi comes from his novelizations of Foundation and other books that he's written. So I'm like, okay, I love those things. So yes, sign me up, please. And then David goes on to say that it's almost kind of like Watchmen, where it's like almost unadaptable because this story spans over 1,000 years. So I'm like, oh, I like an underdog. I like when people say you can't do things and they do it. So I was really intrigued, very fascinated by the show, being a big sci-fi fan that I am. Here we are discussing the first episode. So the way I want to handle this, I'm going to leave chapters and time codes in the description so you guys can kind of know what we're going to be tackling in this video. But again, no spoilers, just my general thoughts of the first two episodes, kind of recapping the first two episodes, breaking down the characters as much as I can without giving too much away, and just letting you know if it's worth checking out in this spoiler-free review. So let's kick things off with starting off with my first impressions. This has to be, and this is I'm not speaking hyperbole, this has to be one of the best looking shows I've seen all year. And first and foremost, I mentioned Apple TV Plus. Their pockets are deep. Every show that they've produced has looked gorgeous, but I think this is the best looking Apple TV Plus show so far. From the opening shots, the sequences of the landscaping, the sweeping shots in space, the different textures, the different planets, seeing the beauty of the outer space. I mean, I was floored. I was blown away by the visuals of the show, which brings me to, I'm such a big fan of when shows can make me feel like I'm in the world that they're creating. There's a perfect balance, and I'm not speaking hyperbole here, a perfect balance of practical effects. They're building sets. You can feel like you can touch these sets. You can be in this world, which I love, and then they give you a great amount of visual effects. The VFX, the CGI is mixed perfectly with the practicality, so I love that right off the bat. The score is bombastic. It's huge in scope. I'm a score head, and I love the score that this show has to offer. And the performances, without diving deep into all the characters that we get in these first two episodes, there were two characters that stood out to me. First and foremost, Lee Pace, such a fantastic, I think, underrated actor. He's been a part of some big franchises in his career. First and foremost, Twilight, The Hobbit. He's been a part of the Marvel franchise with Guardians and Captain Marvel, and I think he's fantastic. And I don't know if you all have ever seen it was on AMC, Halt and Catch Fire, one of the best shows like in the last decade. He's fantastic. And I mentioned Marvel. Now, if you all have seen Guardians, I love James Gunn, but Ronan wasn't a good character to me. He was very underutilized. But think of that character times 1,000 and getting something to do. He plays a character by the name of Brother Day, who I'll talk about his whole situation and cloning and Cleons and all that, but he was absolutely he was menacing. He demanded your attention, absolutely fantastic. But then there's another actress by the name of Llobell who plays Gail, who I've never seen her work, but she's fantastic. I am going to give her a moment here to kind of break down her character, but she stole every scene that she was in, and I am so glad that we're on this journey with this actress because she is fantastic in her role. So visuals, performance, direction, first 2 episodes, score, the first 2 episodes, absolutely incredible. But let's talk about a gentleman here that's very important to this story before we break down and recap these episodes. Gentleman by the name of Dr. Harry Seldon. Now, he is known to many as a genius mathematician. He's known to some as a murderer and a martyr. And essentially, what Harry's whole thing of this first 2 episodes is, he studies psychohistory. And psychohistory is the destiny of the human race in numbers to predict the future in the fall of the Empire. So I mentioned Marvel a little bit earlier for all my Captain America Winter Soldier fans. You remember the algorithm, how they can predict things that are happening before it happens, or even Steven Spielberg Minority Report, which again, we talked about. This is a huge foundation in sci-fi, predicting the future, and obviously that's not a good thing for the Empire because people are getting scared. There's people like, oh, are we gonna die? Is the world gonna fall? So obviously there's some people of power that don't like what Harry has to say. So that's kind of the gist of these first 2 episodes and diving deep into the lore and to these characters. So let's break down these episodes. Episode 1, which was titled The Emperor's Peace. First and foremost, for my action sci-fi fans, there's not a ton of action in the first 2 episodes, which I'm okay with because what they give me in replace of the action, I mentioned how the visuals are absolutely flooring, but it's the world building, it's the lore, it's the mythology, it's the different planets, it's the different politics, it's building out the world that again spans over 1,000 years. And I thought this was one of the best pilot episodes I've seen in a very long time because it's very dense. I'm gonna let you all know it challenges you because you have to pay attention, which I love doing that. This reminds me a lot of 2 things come to mind when watching these first 2 episodes. I remember being first introduced to Game of Thrones and hearing all the houses, House Stark, Lannisters, Westeros, the Walkers, and it's just like, whoa, this is a lot to take in. But as the episodes unfold and you meet the characters, you start to understand the world, and that's what these first 2 episodes do a good job at, as well as I mentioned Game of Thrones, but also one of my favorite shows of all time, Dark. There's a lot of stuff going on there, so I love how these first 2 episodes, and particularly this first episode, lays the foundation of the world that they're building here. And within this first episode, we're exploring, and again, no spoilers, there's a trial at hand because as I mentioned, Dr. Harry, he has this prediction of the future and that the empire that will fall sooner rather than later, and of course that creates fear, and the powers that be don't want people to fear the empire falling. So within the first episode, again, we're tackling this trial. There's a big moment that happens in this episode that involves an attack that causes over 100 million people to lose their lives, and that changes everything. And Dr. Harry has his eyes on this other intelligent person, as I mentioned, Gal, played by Lou, and we'll get into her in a bit here, but if you kill the hope of the mathematicians, there's no hope at all. So that's going to even accelerate the process of the empire falling down. But let me get a little bit more particular and more specific about breaking down this character. So I mentioned Lou, how she was fantastic, and she goes by the character of Gail. Now, she comes from a planet by the name of Sinex, and from what I gather from Sinex, these seems like people that are very in tune with religion. They have these prayer stones, and they seem to have this intuition of people's feelings. So we kind of get a little bit of her backstory, and we learn that she won this big contest, this math contest that allows her to work side by side with Harry. So she has to leave her family behind. She's given this task to prove his theory wrong, and is within this first episode, and the first 2 episodes, I'm being honest, she's such a great character. She's so intriguing. She has so much intellect, and she's so wise, but just as much intellect she has just as much hope in the galaxy, in building the galaxy, and to try to prevent the fall of the Empire. So I thought that the way she handled her character, seeing the world through her eyes, was very fascinating. And again, I'm very blown away by that actress. She was great. But I keep mentioning the Empire. Let's talk about the emperors. And there's not one, there's not two, but there's 3 emperors in this show, and they are, without getting too deep into the minutia, and I mentioned Star Wars, they're clones. They're clones of the Cleons, and they are the first emperors of the natural remains of the world. And there's 3 clones, and they're 3 different ages. We have Brother Dawn, Brother Day, and Brother Dusk. And again, they're genetically made to come from the Cleon people. So again, not diving too deep into the minutia, but it's just so fascinating. Again, I mentioned Clone Wars, Star Wars, and geneticism. It's just like they're almost robotic in the way that they approach how to rule the galaxy, how to rule the empire. But then there's other brothers, and there's a little bit of a rift going on with the brothers that's more focused on episode 2. But I love, again, it's the world building, it's the mythology and everything that we're getting within this first episode. And again, not really going too deep into the episode 1 here, but keeping the mathematicians are very key within this first episode. And I think wrapping up my thoughts of the first episode, it's Star Wars visuals and scope and scale, meaning the politics of the prequels, but it has the intellect of Star Trek. And I mentioned Star Trek because I'm not like the biggest Star Trek fan, but something I love about Star Trek, more so than I do, and not saying that Star Wars isn't intellectual, but I think Star Trek focused more on the human nature. It dives into discrimination of the different planets and different creatures, and this show has a mixture of both of those worlds. So I really thought that first episode did a great job of establishing that, and we kind of end the episode in regards to, okay, we have to go to a new planet by the name of Terminus, and we have to build this vault, which has the secrets of how we're going to live as a world, as a future, and we build the foundation. So it was a great pilot episode. I was hooked after the first pilot episode. It was almost like a movie. It was almost an hour and 10 minutes, I want to say. Very cinematic. Very, very highly recommend that first episode. It is fantastic for my sci-fi fans. But going into episode 2, which was titled Preparing to Live, an episode in which we immediately get a little bit of action because, like I mentioned, in episode 1, there was an attack on the Star Bridge, which caused 100 million people to die. So the Emperors are looking for answers. And this is where we get a little bit more of the world building and the characterizations, and we get more of the relationship building. I mentioned how Gail is a very important character, and we have Harry, who has a son by the name of Riche, and we see that Riche and Gail are getting very close on their journey to Terminus and seeing all that kind of play out. But speaking of Terminus, it's in the second episode that we hear the dangers of this planet. We get the simulation of how dangerous this planet can be, and there's a lot of conversation being had as they're traveling to Terminus, which is going to take about 54 months. There's people on the ship that fear that they're going to lose humanity because Terminus is very kind of isolated and very dangerous. Is it living, or is it more a part of a greater plan? So you're seeing that dichotomy of how people are thinking about themselves and moving forward with the future and making sure that the Empire doesn't fall and kind of slowing down that process. But we also learn things in regards to going back to Harry's plan and everything that he kind of has set out for the future. There may be some holes in that plan. There may be some missing pieces in this mathematical apocalypse that he predicted. There's so many great conversations in the second episode regarding conversations around preservation. What do we bring to this new planet? There's, like I mentioned, some division between the clone brothers, and there's maybe some people thinking that they should or shouldn't do certain things. So that's really heavily focused on the second episode. Again, the second episode really builds. We don't expand as much as we did in the first episode, but we hone in on the worlds, on the planets, and the characters, and who these people are, and what drives these people to do the things they do, which brings me to Brother Day, again, played by Lee Pace. He makes a very violent and disturbing decision, and he sends a message to the rest of the galaxy. You don't want to play around with the Empire, and it's a message that's heard around the galaxy, and again, it reminded me a lot of Star Wars regarding the Death Star, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. But we end the episode on a very open-ended, kind of very ambitious ending that left me very confused, but in the best way possible. So wrapping up this review here, ladies and gentlemen, no spoilers. First 2 episodes were fantastic. I personally think episode 1 was just a little bit more fleshed out. The second episode was great. It was a little bit off in the pacing. It's still about an hour long, very cinematic. I was very surprised they didn't release the first 3 episodes, and I'm glad they released 2, but I thought that it would have been maybe just to kind of really spread things out to release the first 3, but neither here nor there. Episode 1 was fantastic. Episode 2 was really great. This is a world I want to live in regards to diving deep into it, learning more of these characters, learning more about Terminus, learning more about, there's a particular moment in episode 1 when we jump 35 years into the future to see how the Foundation looks, how it comes to be. There's someone that's able to come close to the vault, which normally animals, planets, or animals, creatures, humans can't come close to the vault, but someone's able to do so. I want to learn more about that character, learn more about Gal and her intellect and she has like this certain type of ability against her. And again, once you all see episode 2, what now? I'll just leave it at that. So again, I am beyond impressed. I am, like I mentioned up top, I love sci-fi. This is the sci-fi I love, the world building I love, the conversations I love. It doesn't rely on the action whatsoever. Like I said, there's literally probably 2 action set pieces or action sequences within 2 hours of storytelling. So in exchange for that, Again, it's the world building, it's the visuals, it's the story, it's the narrative, it's the performances. I am blown away by these first 2 episodes, and I will be covering this on a weekly basis. And I want to know, will you all go on this journey with me on The Foundation? Let's talk about it in the comments. Let me know your pros, your cons, your thoughts, your theories for the weeks ahead. And of course, will you be back to watch more? Let's talk about it in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. If you stuck around to this point in this review, I would appreciate every single one of you all. Before you leave, make sure to like this video, share this video, leave your thoughts in the comment section. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. That way you can get the alert from when I drop new content. As you can see on the screen now, subscribe to the channel, check out my other videos. Hope you enjoyed this review. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you on the next one.